Imagine you're on a boat, looking at a beautiful green island with a cliff with dense forest, and the captain turns to you and says, "You can't go from here. Not because it is prohibited, not because there is war, but because if you set foot there, you have less than an hour to live. 1 hour. This is not an exaggeration. It is not a legend. It is not a story about a drunken fisherman. This is what the Brazilian government officially recognizes, and the island exists. It is less than 35 kilometers from São Paulo. Today I'm going to tell you everything about her. Speak up, guys. You are very welcome. Today we're going to talk about Ilha da Queimada Grande, the most dangerous place in Brazil, and perhaps one of the most dangerous on planet Earth. And look, when I say dangerous, I'm not talking about crime, trafficking, anything like that. I'm talking about pure, wild, primitive nature, and absolutely fascinating. So if you're the type who enjoys real history that's more insane than any fiction, stay here with me until the end, because I promise that you'll leave this video looking at the world in a different way. Let's start at the beginning. Ilha da Queimada Grande is located on the coast of the state of São Paulo, belongs to the municipality of Itanhaém, and has an area of around 430,000 square meters. It's not huge, but it's enough. Enough to house a population that no human being on the planet could face. There are approximately 5,000 snakes distributed across this island. 5,000 snakes, in an area that you could walk through in less than an hour. This means, on average, 1 snake per square meter. In some areas, scientists say this density is even higher, and they're not just any snakes, no. They are island pit vipers, or Bothrops insularis, a species that does not exist anywhere else in the world. Zero, just there. And now you're probably thinking, okay, a snake is a snake. Every interior in Brazil has a snake. But calm down, because what makes the island Jararaca different, and here things start to get really scary, is the venom. Its venom is between 3 and 5 times more potent than that of the common pit viper that you find on the continent. And there is one detail that will leave you speechless. This poison does not immediately paralyze the victim. He acts in a much more subtle and much more cruel way. It begins to dissolve the internal tissues around the bite site. Literally, the meat begins to separate from the bone. In extreme cases, it causes internal bleeding, organ failure, and death within hours. No antidote, no hospital nearby. The chances are slim. But why did this snake become like this? Why did it develop a poison so powerful, so lethal, so different from its mainland cousins? This is where science encounters the most incredible story of isolated evolution that I have ever studied in my life. And in a moment I'll tell you this full story, because it changes everything you think about how nature works. First, let me better place you in time. Ilha da Queimada Grande was not always an island. Around 11,000 years ago, at the end of the glacial period, sea levels were much lower than they are today. The island was, in fact, part of the continent, an extension of the Serra do Mar, those Atlantic forest regions you see on the coast of São Paulo. When the climate warmed, the ice melted, the sea level rose, and that point of land became isolated. The snakes that were there were trapped. No way out. No communication with the mainland. No arrival of new species. No genetic mixing, no nothing. Just them there on an island that was shrinking over time. And then begins the most brutal process that nature can impose: adaptation or extinction. Snakes needed to eat. But on an island, you don't have large mammals. You don't have rodents in abundance. You don't have the easy prey of the mainland. What do you have? Birds. The island is an important migration corridor. Birds of various species pass by, rest, feed, and become the island Jararaca's dinner. But catching birds is much more difficult than catching mice. Bird flies. If you sting a bird and it manages to fly 100 meters before dying, you've lost your lunch. So the snake that survived was the snake whose venom killed the fastest. The more potent the venom, the faster the bird died. The closer it fell, the more the snake ate, the more chicks it had. Generation after generation, millennium after millennium, this poison was selected, improved, boosted by the very need for survival. Its evolution happening in its purest form. And the result is one of the deadliest snakes on the planet. Now, have you ever stopped to think about the following? If the island is so dangerous, how do we know all this? Who went there to count these snakes? Who went there to collect the poison, study the behavior, map the population? This is a point that most videos about Queimada Grande ignore, and which I find the most fascinating of all, because yes, there are people who go there, with authorization, with equipment, with protocol, but it goes. The Butantan Institute, which is one of the largest venom research institutions in the world, has a long history of expeditions to the island. Scientists from all over the world ask IBAMA for permission to carry out research there, and the stories they bring, man, it gives me goosebumps. One of the researchers who studied the island for years described that on certain vegetation trails, every time you took a step, you needed to look at the ground, to the side, up, at the branches. Snakes don't just stay on the ground. They climb trees, wrap themselves around branches, waiting for a bird to land. A researcher described seeing, on a single branch, 3 different snakes curled up, absolutely motionless, waiting, not sleeping, waiting, with that cold and calculated patience that only reptiles have. And the Brazilian Navy maintains an automatic lighthouse on the island. Automatic, because there used to be lighthouse keepers living there. That's right. There was a family that lived in Queimada Grande taking care of the lighthouse. And here we enter the territory of legend and history at the same time, because there are reports, never officially confirmed, but widely documented in local sources, that the last lighthouse keeper and his family died on the island after snakes invaded the residence. The most told story says that the snakes entered through the windows during the night, bit the lighthouse keeper, his wife and children, and when a boat arrived days later, it found only bodies. There is no official record of this, but the Navy decided to automate the lighthouse. Coincidence, perhaps, or maybe not. And speaking of dark history, there is another report from a fisherman, this one more recent and better documented, who landed on the island to catch bananas. There was a banana tree near the coast, and he, without knowing exactly what the island had, entered through the vegetation. What happened next? The boat was found with bloodstains. The fisherman never returned. The body was never found. The island does not forgive carelessness. Okay, now why haven't we just exterminated the snakes? I'll be honest, this question bothers a lot of people, and I understand. But the answer is much deeper than it seems at first glance. And this answer connects science, ethics, and money in a way that will surprise you. Stay with me. First point, the island Jararaca is a critically endangered species. Despite having 5,000 individuals on the island, it does not exist outside of their 0. If you exterminate the island, you exterminate the species, and this is irreversible. There's no going back. There's no, oh, we breed in captivity later. The genetic diversity that this species carries, the unique adaptations it developed, the secrets that its venom still holds, all of this disappears forever. Second point, and this one will shock you. The venom of the island Jararaca is the subject of intense pharmacological research. Components of this venom are being studied for the treatment of cardiovascular diseases, blood clotting, and even as anticoagulants. The same principle that makes the venom so destructive, it dissolves clotting proteins, could be the key to treating patients at risk of thrombosis, stroke, and heart attack. One of the most used anticoagulant medications in the world is based on research carried out with snake venom. Queimada Grande could hide the cure for something that kills millions of people a year. You exterminate the snake, you could be throwing away the key to a laboratory that nature took 11,000 years to build, and then you understand why the island is so protected. Access is prohibited by law. To enter, you need specific authorization from IBAMA, and these authorizations are rare, restricted, and monitored. Tourists don't go. Fishermen doesn't stop. It's prohibited. Point. But, and here's an important but, this protection has loopholes. And this is where I need to stop for a second, because this hits me deep. Guys, this video was a lot of work. Research, script, production, and I do this because I believe that quality content, which educates and excites at the same time, makes a difference. If you've made it this far, you've already proven that you're exactly the type of person this channel wants to reach. So if you haven't liked it yet, do so now. Not the generic, oh, that was cool. Give it a like because you just discovered that the venom of a snake that lives 35 kilometers from Sao Paulo could be the cure for heart disease. This deserves a like. Press it. Continuing. The gaps in the island's protection are real and worrying. Wildlife trafficking is a very serious problem in Brazil, and the Jararaca is a coveted trophy on the international black market. A snake like this can be sold for tens of thousands of dollars to illegal collectors and researchers in Europe, the United States, and Asia. There are records of clandestine expeditions. It is suspected that part of the island's population was reduced by trafficking. And here is the cruelest paradox. The most lethal snake in Brazil, the one that everyone is afraid of, is also one of the most sought after by those who want to have a rarity. Fear and desire go together when the object is extraordinary. The island's current population, estimated at around 4,000 to 5,000 individuals, was once larger. At the beginning of the 20th century, researchers estimated even higher densities. The isolation that protected the species also made it vulnerable. Any external disturbance is catastrophic when there is no way to replenish it from another region. And there is another threat that few talk about: climate change. The island of Queimada Grande has a small area and low altitude. With rising sea levels, which is already a documented reality, parts of the island are slowly being eroded. The vegetation changes, the microclimate changes, and a species so specialized, which spent 11,000 years adapting to specific conditions, may not have enough evolutionary time to adapt again. Nature created a masterpiece of evolution, and modernity may erase it before we understand everything it has to teach. Now I need to ask you a question, and I want you to answer it in the comments because I'm genuinely curious about what people think. If you were a scientist, with full authorization, with full protective equipment, with all the safety possible, would you go to Ilha da Queimada Grande? Send it in the comments. There's no right answer. There are people who say, never in my life, and people who say, I was already packed. I want to know which one you are. Returning to the content, and now we arrive at a part that I find the most fascinating of this entire story. Let's talk about the behavior of the island Jararaca in a way that will change how you think about intelligent animals. Snakes are not stupid. This is a huge prejudice that we carry. Reptiles are not stupid. Snakes are not automatic. The island Jararaca has developed hunting behaviors that are, in the words of the researchers themselves, sophisticated. She uses the bird's body heat to identify them in trees. She strategically positions her body on branches that are exactly on the landing route of certain migratory birds. It learns, within the neurological capabilities of a reptile, which periods of the year have the most bird movement and increases activity during those periods. In the months when bird migration is greatest, the snakes are more active, more positioned in the branches, more in hunting mode. During periods of migratory drought, they reduce activity, conserve energy, and spend more time in a state of torpor. It's not blind instinct. It is a rudimentary form of adaptive strategy, and this, in an animal that we dismiss as primitive, is extraordinary. There is another behavioral detail that fascinated me when I read it. Island pit vipers are less aggressive towards humans than their mainland cousins. This is counterintuitive, right? The most lethal, least aggressive snake? But it makes perfect evolutionary sense. In 11,000 years of isolation, this snake has never encountered a human. We are not part of her repertoire of threats. She doesn't recognize us as predators, so she doesn't attack out of fear or immediate defense instinct. She attacks when she is stepped on, when she is directly disturbed, when she feels cornered. The problem is that on the island, with the density it has, you inevitably step on it, inevitably disturb it, inevitably approach it without realizing it. The snake doesn't want to kill you. The island is what kills you. And now, if you've made it this far and are enjoying this type of content that goes deep, that really researches, that doesn't stay on the surface, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. Here we don't make quick videos for the algorithm. We make videos so you leave differently than when you entered. Click subscribe, activate the bell, and you won't miss any videos. Just like that. But I still haven't told you one of the most unbelievable stories related to the island. Come with me. In the early 20th century, before the island was officially protected and before the lighthouse was automated, there were sporadic attempts to use Queimada Grande. The name itself comes from one of these attempts. Burn because there was, at some point, a deliberate burning of the vegetation, an attempt to clean the island, to make space perhaps for banana plantations or for use as pasture. The fire was not enough. The snakes survived. The vegetation returned. The island returned to what it always was. There is also a historical report, which circulates in naval archives and in studies of regional history, that pirates and smugglers in the 18th and 19th centuries would have considered the island a perfect hiding place precisely because it was inaccessible. The logic was, if no Navy ship dared stop there, it would be the perfect hiding place. Reports suggest that some attempts were made. Reports also suggest that not everyone who tried came out. There's no way to verify this with historical accuracy, but the fact is that the island has always had this aura of a place that civilization simply can't tame. And there's something poetic about that, right? We live in a world where humanity reached the moon, mapped the bottom of the ocean, created artificial intelligence, but there is a little island 30-odd kilometers from one of the biggest cities in the world that we simply cannot inhabit. Where nature speaks louder than all our technology. Where 5,000 snakes said without words, without negotiation, "This is ours." And before I tell you the final chapter of this story, I want to be honest with you for a second. Making a video like this, with real research, with serious sources, with a thought-out script, takes days. And I do it with love. But love doesn't pay for the electricity bill. It doesn't pay for the equipment. It doesn't pay for the time dedicated. The channel grows when you truly support it. If you want to contribute in any way, whether by becoming a member of the channel or through Valo de Mai, any amount helps. I'm not asking for this as an obligation. I'm asking because every time someone contributes, I can dedicate more time, make a better video, research deeper. You are literally financing knowledge. And if you can't contribute financially, that's okay. Really. Share the video. This is also real support. Now, the final chapter. And it's about the future. What will happen to Ilha da Queimada Grande? That's the question scientists and environmentalists debate with increasing seriousness. Because the island is at risk. Not from being invaded by humans. Legal protection and the natural danger itself guarantee that. The risk is quieter, more gradual. Coastal erosion, accelerated by climate change, is literally eating away at the island's edges. Researchers who photographed the island in different decades noticed a reduction in the coastline, not dramatically, not immediately collapsing, but steadily and irreversibly. An island that was already small becomes smaller, less habitat, less vegetation, less prey, and a snake population that relies on a delicate balance is starting to feel the pressure. At the same time, extreme adventure tourism is growing around the world. Queimada Grande has become a destination for those who collect impossible experiences. YouTube, social media, adventure blogs, the appeal of the Forbidden Island is immense. And this creates increasing pressure on IBAMA, the Navy, and the federal government to make access more flexible. There is real debate about this. There are those who argue that controlled scientific tourism could generate resources for preservation. There are those who argue that any opening is a door that cannot be closed later. And there is the debate that I think is the most delicate of all, the possibility of translocation. Some scientists propose capturing a group of island jararacas and creating a population in another controlled environment, such as a second island without snakes off the coast of São Paulo, to have a plan B in case the original island is compromised. It's tempting as an idea, but the history of conservation biology is full of examples of reintroduction and translocation gone wrong in ways no one predicted. Taking a species of 11,000 years of isolation and placing it in another environment, what changes its behavior? In poison? In interaction with other species? Science doesn't have a right answer for this yet. What science has is a consensus. Queimada Grande is a unique natural laboratory in the world. What happens there in isolation over millennia is a window to understand evolution in a way that does not exist anywhere else on the planet. Every snake there is a given. Each poison variation is information. Each adapted behavior is a biology lesson that we will not find in any book because nature wrote this chapter alone without human interference in a closed laboratory for 11,000 years. And perhaps this is exactly the biggest lesson from Ilha da Queimada Grande. We think we control nature. We think that with enough technology, with enough will, with enough money, we can go anywhere. We can modify anything. We can dominate any territory. And then there is an island 35 kilometers from São Paulo that laughs at our pretensions. That says with 5,000 silent and deadly voices that nature does not need our permission to exist. That evolution didn't stop when we invented the wheel, nor when we reached the moon, nor when we created the internet. That there are processes happening on the planet that are bigger, older, and more powerful than anything humanity has ever built. Queimada Grande Island is not only the most dangerous place in Brazil. She is a mirror in which humanity looks and sees what happens when nature has space to be completely itself. No interference, no domestication, no control. And what it shows is scary, yes. It's lethal, yes. But it is also absolutely profoundly unforgettably beautiful. Thank you for staying until the end. This is the type of video I make because I believe that the world makes more sense when we truly understand it. Not the shallow version, not the easy click, and the real deep nuanced understanding. If you liked it, the like already knows where it is. Registration 2. And in the comments tell me, would you go to the island? I need to know. Until next time,